Good afternoon. We have been running, and what a run it has been the past few months. We are CEOs, philanthropists, mothers, community reconcilers, board members, and now many of us homeschoolers, and we are thirsty. I remember training for my one and only triathlon. I learned quickly that water is essential. On race day, there were water stations set up along the route, which gave me both water for my thirst and the encouragement that I needed to finish the race. Today, I hope you leave this virtual well refreshed, encouraged, and inspired to keep running your race on the path to wholehearted living and giving. Welcome to the well. We are from 35 states, 5 countries, and 4 continents today, and we see the world being transformed by a wave of God's generosity through women's intentional and lavish giving. And while we are unique, we are not alone. My name is Julie Wilson, and I'm the president of Women Doing Well and your host for today. Through our groundbreaking research of more than 7,000 Christian women, we were able to listen to what gave women the confidence and motivation to grow their generosity. The results were stunning and clear. Women wanted to know their purpose, ignite their passion, and have a plan. Our mission is to activate women of influence to live lives shaped by God's generosity. We do this through a pathway of experiences that help you ignite, grow, and activate your purpose, passion, and plan for living and giving. And this matters because we are in historic times. Did you know that women control 51% of the personal wealth in the US? And 96% of women have a primary or shared responsibility for the family financial decisions? And that women are the majority owners of 38% of businesses, generating over 1.6 trillion in revenues. Our research also showed that Christian women are generous. We are 300 times more generous with our money than the average American and 400 times more generous with our time. So today we gather around this virtual well of living water to be refreshed and encouraged and get what we need to finish the next leg of the race. Today we will hear stories of purpose, passion, and plan. We'll learn from Liz Bohannon, author of Beginner's Pluck, and pluck is simply determination and courage. We'll interact with each other using the chat and poll features. So to get us started, I want to bring your attention to the poll feature. Over in the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see a conversation bubble with 3 lines in it, and it should be lit up blue right now. If you click on that, you'll see our first poll. I'd love for you to weigh in and let us know how many Women Doing Well experiences have you attended. Maybe you're new to us, or maybe you've been to 1, or maybe more than 3. We love inviting new friends to our global community. So if this is your first gathering, thank you for investing your time to get to know us. We love to connect, so the next thing I want to point out is the chat feature. So while we can't see each other, we can communicate. Near the top right, you'll find a blank conversation bubble, and that will allow you to comment. Give it a try by saying hello now. Maybe you know some friends that are on in a different state. You can also register a comment or add a thought, or if you have a question, we'll answer those as we go. To start our time, we are going to have a real chat with 2 friends who are on the journey to living both purpose and passion. I'd love to welcome Marlena Centeno and Kim Tingler to our broadcast. Hi, guys.
Hi, Hi,
Hi
so happy to
there.
be here.
I'm excited to introduce both of you to our friends. Marlena lives in New Jersey with her husband and 3 children. She's a Philadelphia native who works at the American Bible Society in their Trauma and Healing Institute and has also just launched her own organization, Wholehearted Women. It's an organization creating safe spaces for women to walk out the journey of healing in community. And we met back in 2017 when we had our event there. And she was on our city team, and she's been running hard for the time since then. She's very passionate, and I can't wait for you to meet her. But I want to introduce you to our other friend, Kim Tingler. She is the managing director of We Want More. an organization committed to helping Christ followers know their true identity and purpose. Just 2 years ago, Kim was working in corporate America, having climbed quite high on the New York ladder. She was global head of HR for A&E Networks. Then she was invited to attend a event at the Morehouse, and over the course of a year felt a nudge to leave that job and help this ministry scale. What I love about her story is that once she made that decision, corporate America was not happy, and they kind of challenged your intentions, didn't they, Kim? I'd love for you to start us out by talking with us about what happened once you made the decision to leave that coveted job.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thanks for having me on today. It's so great to be here with everybody and to be part of Women Doing Well. It's an honor. So thank you. And yeah, you're right. Corporate America was not happy to have me resign. My boss actually thought it was a ploy to get more money. He thought it was a negotiation tactic and offered me a 3-year contract with a lot of bells and whistles attached. And what I did is I happened to have a conversation with a mentor, a friend, and what she said is, listen, Kim, there are many women who would love to know exactly what they're worth to the world. And now you have a number you can put on it. But the reality is you got to figure out what it is that you want to do, and more importantly, what God wants you to do. And so if being able to make money and maybe fund something is what you want to do, go ahead and do that, which is certainly a noble cause. But if you think you're supposed to go and live out your purpose and your passion a different way, then you should say thank you for the number. I really appreciate it, and go do what God's calling you to do. And so I was able to walk away, but definitely an interesting dilemma for sure.
Oh, I love that. And Marlena, did you ever dream of starting an organization? You work at the American Bible Society, but was this a dream you've had?
No, it's all brand new. Growing up in a really difficult situation, and addiction and domestic violence, and I never thought that I would lead or run anything. I always thought I was really great at being a number two. And but being around really great leaders, they always want to call, especially women, out and up. Like, no, you actually are a leader yourself. And so for a long time, being a mom and being a wife and being a pastor's wife, I had to lay down a lot of my own desires and dreams, and felt like I had to. But God really, I would say in the last 3 years or so, really began to birth new dreams in me and told me that I was worthy to have a dream as well. So that's how it came to be.
I love that. And both of you have had a chance in our Women Doing Well experiences, as well as at the Morehouse. You get a 2-word purpose statement. So I'm curious, how have you experienced applying your 2-word purpose statement to every day? Marlena, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, so mine is stirring bravery, which when I first got it, I had this like jolt of energy, like, oh my gosh, this is big. I'm going to call people to works of justice and reform. I have a big heart for justice. But I quickly began to realize that, yes, I will stir bravery in large groups of people, but um, it can be really difficult when things don't happen in the way that you think that they will, specifically with injustices. And we even see that today. So it's been really hard, but recognizing that I can stir bravery in others in small ways. There's the things that are right in front of us. And though I might not, you know, be able to go out and do these large feats of justice, and God might call me there. But the ways in which he's called me to right now, and for all of us really, is the small things that are right in front of us. How can I encourage someone that maybe has their head down to just lift it up and take one step at a time? So that's how I've seen stirring bravery work out in my everyday.
Oh, I just love the
Yeah,
work that you're doing.
and I
Go
love
ahead,
that,
Kim.
Marlena. I think to your point that mine is a affirming significance, and I think it's interesting figuring out what you believe important things are and living out your purpose in that way. I think the world may judge on what big things are most important. But the thing that I have come to know lately is that the little things are the things that matter. And so affirming significance on an individual level is just as important as affirming significance on a broad scale. And I think really having the ability to see the importance in the little things as well as the big things is really incredible.
And something you have both touched on is this deeper part of purpose being identity and believing that you're a child of God. So how has that impacted what you're doing and who you are? Marlena, do you want to start us?
Yeah, I would say for me, I so agree with that, that the thing that you find yourself, that two-word purpose statement that you find yourself looking at is really what you wanted someone to do for you. I wanted somebody to stir bravery in me, to tell me that I had courage to do the really, really hard things in my life, that I would overcome, that I was more than a conqueror. Like those are the things that I longed for. And so it didn't surprise me once I was able to uncover that, oh, that's why I have this desire to pour out into women, to tell them, like, you are strong and brave and confident, and God has a plan, a purpose, a destiny for you. And so, absolutely. And so when the self-talk comes in of, I don't know what I'm doing. I can't do this. I don't know what I'm talking about. No one wants to hear what I have to say. I really have to remind myself and get around people who remind me that, no, Marlena, you are brave and you have a voice and you are confident and God has called you to say something. And so, yeah, it's really a full circle when it comes to our two-word purpose statements. And it really is rooted in our identity. Absolutely.
Kim, do you want to add anything to that?
I mean, I think she said it all. I think having your identity in Christ, being rooted in that, and then when the waves of doubt and self-talk come against you, it's so important to be rooted in Christ and knowing who he sees you as, even if the world doesn't see you that way.
Yeah. Well, and Kim, maybe you can speak a little to this idea of community that we've been talking about and having that as part of your journey. What does that look like for you?
Oh yeah, I mean, community to me is it's part of the air we breathe. And life, I mean, I don't know about all of you, but my life is messy sometimes. And being able to have a group of people to rely on, to point me back to the truth, to build me up, to remind me who I am, reminding me not only of my identity in Christ, but also my two-word purpose statement and affirming significance. I mean, it's everything. And there's no perfect formula that I have figured out yet, but I know that having my community of people around me adds to the formula for sure. And it is certainly them who I rely on when the going gets tough, in addition, obviously, to God. But I certainly look to them, my community, as people to help me get through the tough times for sure, and the good times.
Yeah, it's hard virtual. I'm very much an extrovert. I love people. I love to connect to people, see them, touch them, have a meal together. And so it's been hard for me in some ways, but I have found, especially, I think especially hard right now working in a corporate environment and being a Black woman in America right now. It's really difficult to find that safe space in that community. And that's really, again, out of the need that I had for a safe space, I was able to create that for other women. And it's really a mutuality that we all get to share together. Wholehearted Women, we really have a heart and a passion to serve women of color. All women are welcome always, but specifically a safe space for women of color to come together to heal from past wounds and current wounds of just living in society. And so that's really been my heart. And I feel so much more passionate about that. Again, even today, just thinking about Breonna Taylor and the injustice, I'm like, oh, it's so heavy on my heart to continue the work. It can be really hard to start something big that God has called you to, but on days like today, I'm reminded of why God has put this on my heart to create this safe space. And so, the community is really one of mutual accountability and growth. I am not the expert. I just come and present, I set the table, and we learn from each other. And so that's really been my community lately. I'm grateful for that.
Well, and the two of you have been learning from each other. One of the things I love about our community is that we kind of are each other's cheerleaders. So, will you share, Marlena, and then maybe Kim, you could comment on how you guys have been just working together in this healing space, which is both of your passions?
Oh my gosh, I love it. Um, Kim said something a little bit ago. She said, in the natural, we would be competition because we're both doing this healing hearts ministry. But in the kingdom, God has brought us together through Women Doing Well. We would have never connected otherwise, I don't think. But through Women Doing Well, we've been able to connect and share resources with each other. And so I was hosting a retreat, and I know Kim had already done several retreats. And so I was able to call her and process and pray. And she gave me resources to give to my women. And it's been so beautiful to see the community of Women Doing Well come together. And really, it's just beautiful. There's no competition. It's my favorite.
Yeah, I completely agree. And the only thing I would add to that, I mean, first of all, you guys are getting a taste of Marlena. Like, it's amazing being in community with her. She's incredible. And Julie, you guys know. So I just feel lucky to be in a community of such amazing women. But I also think when there is that sharing in the community and the sharing that Women Doing Well does so beautifully, there's also a generosity to it. So it's not just let me give you a piece here or there, but it's take everything. Let's you and I collaborate, because the more open our doors are to each
Yes.
other, the more we can then encourage each other in our two-word purpose statement, in the ministries that God's calling us to be in. And so it's that the beauty and the generosity is really incredible too. So Julie, you're the one who brought the two of us together. So I thank
Yeah.
you. And it's just wonderful. So thank you.
Oh my gosh. Well,
Yeah.
both of you, thank you for sharing with us. This is such a great example of purpose, passion, community, all of it just working together for the kingdom. And I could not be more thankful for you guys. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank
Thanks
you.
so much for having us.
So, so one of the things I've seen in many lives is that our purpose and passion is often linked to painful things from our past. And one of the ways I know God is generous is that some of the greatest works of art were done by artists who found art to be a healthy way to express and process their pain. I want you to meet one of those artists today. Rosie is a British born Korean living in the United States. After studying math and computer science at Imperial College in London, she pursued a career in film and TV until married life took her to New York City. But Rosie's life has a challenge most of us will never know. She was born without arms. Through a healing journey, Rosie has reconnected with her purpose, and she's inspiring thousands across the country. And we get to be with her today. Hi, Rosie.
Hi, thank you for
It's
having
so
me.
great. Hey, it's great to see you. I
Great to see
remember,
you too.
I think it was 7 years ago we met. Is that right? Something
Around
like
seven
that. You
years, I
had,
think, 6 or 7 years, yes.
we were both at a retreat, and you shared not only your story at that retreat, but you really felt God inviting you to paint for the first time since college. You had put that on the back burner, and I was so blown away by that experience. Yeah, just tell us about that time.
Yes, so life moved. I mean, after I got married, it wasn't even a month when we found out that my husband's job was going to relocate us to New York City. So we leaped across the Atlantic to the US, yeah, I never realized that moving so far away from family and friends would put me in a place of just rediscovering my identity again. I guess I had to. It kind of felt like I was starting all over again, trying to find people to be my friend and and so on. So when we moved to Connecticut, it was just so amazing how I joined a Bible study group called Community Bible Study, and that's where I met Cindy Halstead, who, with her husband, runs a ministry called We Want More, and it just happened that the ministry needed some help with their intranet, I think, and I volunteered my husband to help them, and I ended up at the Moore House one morning, and while my husband was helping out with the tech stuff, I sat with Cindy, and it was the first time someone just asked in such a genuine way, what is your story? And that was the moment my heart just opened, and I shared my story with Cindy, and from then Cindy was like, well, we actually have a women's retreat coming up next weekend. We have one spot left. Would you be interested in coming? And completely out of the blue, she then asked if I would be interested in painting at this event, saying that normally they have a time where they have an artist paint, and the artist had been away in Hong Kong at the time, the lovely Laura Fluke, who we all know, and so Laura was away, so Cindy asked if I would be interested, and before I even had a chance to even think about it, my mouth had already said yes. So I turned up at this retreat, and I didn't even have my own paints at the time, so I brought my kids' paint set with me, and I stood in front of the canvas, the blank canvas that I knew I had to paint something in front of these women, and I remember just thinking, okay, I can't do this by my own, and in that moment, I just asked God, okay, what do you want me to do? I really need you, and I heard his voice say, I want you to be my paintbrush. And that was the moment when everything just made sense. I realized that I, by being open to being his paintbrush, I realized that there was power in my story, and that there was so much more that I could share with the world, with the gift that I was given. And since then, I've been painting nonstop, painting for various events, and for children, adults, and everyone is invited to whatever event that I get to have and share my art. Yeah.
And you're going to paint for us today, Rosie. This is going to be so special because we're going to leave you for a little bit, and you're going to get started. But I'd love for them to be able to see, you can see the setup. She paints with her toes. And so we'll kind of come back in a little bit and check in on you. And then at the end, we're going to get to see a finished product, which I think is pretty cool. So we're going to let you get going to get painting, and we'll come back in a little bit to see how you're doing. All right. So maybe some of you are wondering, like me, how do you activate your purpose and passion? The first step is discovering it, but then you actually have to live it. Today, we have someone whose journey started with just such a step. As a matter of fact, she wrote a book about it called Beginner's Pluck. She has been described as a disruptive storyteller whose word can help you return home to yourself, as well as a shining example of imperfect purpose that we all aspire to do and be. She is spending some time with us today via video to encourage us towards purpose and passion. So welcome with me, Liz Bohannon.
We live? I think we're live. Hey, everybody. I am just so grateful to be here with you, Women Doing Well, today, even if just in this virtual space. So thank you for welcoming me into that virtual space and for allowing me to share just a few thoughts on what I have learned over the last decade of what it means to be a woman doing well. My name is Liz Forkin Bohannon, and I am the co-founder and co-CEO of a socially conscious lifestyle brand called Seiko Designs, and now recently the co-founder and co-CEO of a fair trade coffee brand called Together Coffee. But I suppose I'm going to back up just a little bit and tell you a little bit about my journey of starting and founding Seiko and a few of the things that I have learned along the way. So about well over a decade ago at this point, I was a college student. I went to the University of Missouri and I studied journalism. And I was really interested in the issues that were facing women and girls who were living in extreme poverty and in conflict and post-conflict zones. So, I took all the classes and I wrote the papers and I was really passionate about this issue. I graduated from college and, tried to get some sort of job that would like directly align with this passion and couldn't really find one, and started working in corporate communications at a big PR firm. And a few months into that job, I kind of had this realization. And this realization was that there was this thing that I said that I cared a lot about, right? Women and girls living in extreme poverty and living in conflict and post-conflict zones that I did know a lot about on an intellectual level. But I really had this kind of come to Jesus moment sitting in my little cubicle, in my first job out of school, where I recognized that there was a pretty big delta between what I said I cared about and the actual life that I was living in the community that I was building, in real, actual day-to-day life, right? That I didn't actually have a single friend who was a girl who had been affected by extreme poverty. I didn't have a single relationship with someone who grew up in a conflict or post-conflict zone. My community was completely unaffected by the issues that I said I cared about. And I had this recognition, probably at 22, that was like, I can keep on this track of just climbing the corporate ladder and saying that I care about this thing and maybe participating in it over here. But if at some point my life doesn't actually meaningfully intersect with this issue, I think I really doubted. I think I really doubted my ability to stay passionate and to stay engaged for the long haul. I truly believe that proximity and community and relationships are the core of who we are, of the lives that we build, of what we care about, of how we make decisions and kind of the matrix of those decisions, right? And I just knew, at 22, I think I knew enough to know that if I kept this kind of passion, this thing that I could kind of choose to engage with if and when it suited me, that eventually, probably, the idealism of my youth would wear off. And I didn't want that to happen. And so I quit my corporate job and I bought a one-way plane ticket to Uganda. Why Uganda? Great question. That, long story short, I had written a paper, one whopping paper about the conflict in northern Uganda. And so I knew that it was a country that was experiencing extreme poverty and also the effects of civil war, ultimately, and internal conflict, and that conflict was having a disproportionate effect on women and girls living in Uganda. And so when I moved to Uganda, y'all, my goal was just to make friends. It was to build community, and it was to build a life that would allow this kind of macro story of women and girls and global extreme poverty and gender inequality to become an actual and authentic part of my story. I showed up without a plan, without a real vision, without something to do. And I'll be really honest. I talk about this a lot in my book, Beginner's Pluck. In the present, when I was doing that, I felt really insecure about it because I was like, I'm aimless. I don't have a plan. What are my objectives? What are my KPIs? How are we going to measure the success of this? I came to realize through living and being in community with folks around the globe that is a very specifically kind of Western American mindset. And it ended up becoming the greatest privilege and the greatest asset of my whole existence at that time. was to show up in a situation without preconceived notions of what solutions were, or frankly, even what the problems were, without something to do and some mission to accomplish and some, something to start or to build. Because when we come into a situation with our preconceived notions, it's really difficult. It's really difficult to actually ask interesting, unbiased questions about what's going on. What's going on? What is the story? Who is this impacting? What's working and what's not working? Like, what does it look like for me to be a part of this story? When we have an agenda and when we have a very clear vision of what needs to happen, as much as we want to still be listeners, it's very, very difficult. And when we can come to a situation truly with relationships and with building community at the forefront of our mission, really it's just to know others, to be known, frankly, and to enter into authentic relationship that is built in proximity. Our ability to stay really curious, to kind of follow different paths, right? To find interesting problems, to listen to new information that might challenge some of those preconceived notions, is so much greater. And so this focus on just friendship and community building, long story short, because we don't have a ton of time today, but it led me to founding this company called Seiko Designs, because I ended up meeting a group of young women, really academically gifted, bright female scholars who had tested into college, were the top 5% of students in the country, but couldn't afford to continue on to university. There's a 9-month gap in Uganda in between high school and college. And what was happening is these young women were graduating from high school, they were getting into college, they were going back home to their villages for that, kind of gap year. And two things ended up happening when they were back home in their villages. One, there was a lot of social pressure on them to get married and to start having kids and to not continue their education. And the second part was the economic challenge of, there's an 80% youth unemployment rate in Uganda. And most of the economic opportunity that does exist is going to young men in the villages. So there were these two challenges, and really just being in friendship, being in community with these folks, learned about these challenges and decided to do something about it, decided to kind of enter into that 9-month gap and started really kind of brainstorming what is something we could do or make. And honestly, the first thing that I thought of, because I'm an American who frankly is really conditioned to think about an entire continent of people, being the continent of Africa, with a specific lens, right? Of like the underprivileged, and I have privilege and I have resources. And so if I can just connect people with resources to those who don't have resources, then all of our problems will be solved. And so I started a nonprofit. I didn't actually even get so far that I would officially stay. I started it in my brain. This idea that we would link up women in the US with women in Uganda, and that we would sponsor those women and we would just pay for them to go to college. And the more I leaned into that and the more questions I asked, frankly, and the more just curious I stayed, the more I realized that that was only addressing one part of the problem, which was the economic problem. It wasn't actually addressing kind of the social issue and the community challenge that these young women were facing. And furthermore, I realized that it contributed to a narrative that I found increasingly I think problematic. And that was this narrative that I, as frankly, like, a know-nothing 22-year-old who just like shows up in Uganda, is somehow kind of should be seen as or labeled as a giver, right? As, a philanthropist, or as this do-gooder, whatever labels we want to put on that. And when I accept that role as do-gooder or, giver, what it does to my friends in Uganda is it automatically puts them in the role of receiver, right? Or of grateful beneficiary. And the truth is, y'all, we are called to live in community with others across the street and across the globe. And community, real community, is when we are doing this sacred dance together through seasons of like needing and being needed, of giving and receiving. This is how humans are designed to exist together, pushing us all towards greater empathy and dignity and unity. And in any relationship, when we start to get confused and think that these specific seasons or circumstances are actually these permanent roles or identity of, like giver or receiver that we're meant to play. I honestly believe, y'all, that we strip ourselves and others of the dignity of being dynamic and complex fellow humans, all of us in our own ways, terribly broken and brilliantly bright. Our role is not to be the hero of anybody else's story. It's not, y'all. It is not to show up and to fix people's problems and to be the hero and to be the giver and to be the one that everybody claps for and pats on the back. No, our role here on earth is to inspire and equip and encourage one another to be the heroes of our own stories. Just a year or two after starting Seiko, I met a young woman named Agnes, and Aggie grew up in a village right outside of Kampala. When Aggie was 13 years old, a village elder approached her, her father, and offered him 20 cows, which was a really, really big bride price, in exchange for her hand in marriage. And her dad, to the shock and surprise of the entire village, declined the offer in favor of keeping Aggie in school, where she went on and she excelled through high school and eventually university and became the first woman in her entire family to graduate from college. However, when Aggie graduated and she went out to look for a job, she was dismayed that in literally every single job that she applied for, the male hiring manager expected sexual favors in exchange for that opportunity. I do want to be clear that that is not exclusively an Africa problem. We know that that happens to women in Kampala and in Hollywood, and it's present in churches and businesses and organizations all across the country and world. Through a friend of a friend, Aggie found Seiko, and we were just this little scrappy sandal company, and she was looking for a job, and I could not afford to have one more person on payroll. I mean, we were literally just barely surviving, but Aggie would not take no for an answer. She told me that she would work as an intern for free for 1 month if I gave her the chance. She was like, I promise that I'm going to add value to this company. Well, 7 years later, that plucky young woman is now the managing director of our company in Uganda, and she co-chairs the board with me. She's traveled around Africa, meeting our suppliers, negotiating terms and contracts for our raw materials, and she stood on stages here in the US, inspiring hundreds of Seiko fellows, those are our salespeople, to build businesses of purpose and impact. We have this incredible program at Seiko now where basically we employ girls in between that 9-month gap in between high school and university. They make products, they earn money to go on to university, and then we here in the United States, through a network of social entrepreneurs called the Seiko Fellows, we sell those beautiful products, apparel, footwear, beautiful leather handbags. It really is gorgeous. And Aggie's been to the US and she's like, inspired and educated and encouraged women here in the United States to go out and to build their own lives of purpose and passion and impact. And while Aggie's impact is literally stretching all across the globe, one of the things that I love most is that Aggie's village back home is changing. According to Aggie, about probably less than 10 years ago, that village, the norm in that village was that women were married off by the age of 13, maybe 14. The majority of girls in her village today are mainly in school because they've seen through Aggie's story what happens when a girl becomes a leader. So it was Aggie, right? Aggie in her boldness and in her pluck has created this eternal wake of dignity and possibility for young women in Uganda that, here's the deal, I'm never going to know. And frankly, I would not be able to impact and inspire in the way that Aggie can, because she has a voice and a level of influence and a shared experience that I simply don't. Y'all, leadership and doing good in the world, it's not about being a hero or someone, who's primarily rise with being the giver or, the philanthropist or rising to this, level of success or generosity or notoriety. It's just about linking arms with others to create a rising tide that lifts all ships. And when we do the courageous work of pursuing proximity, pursuing our own dark corners, right? When we come to the table recognizing that we are truly all brilliantly bright and incredibly broken, And when we enter into community and relationship with folks that have something to offer us, that we truly believe that we will be better, wiser, more generous, more empathetic, smarter, more creative human beings when we live in true community and when we reject this notion of giver and receiver. We get to light the path for others to be the hero of their own story and create this unimaginable impact that they are uniquely suited to create. Only truly engaging in real community, in real relationships, in real mutually beneficial co-creator relationships can we truly create lasting change that I believe will make the world brighter and better and more equitable than it was yesterday. Thank you so much for letting me share, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your gathering.
Gosh, Liz makes it look so easy. And I love what she said, linking arms with other that creates a rising tide that lifts all ships. I mean, don't we all want to do that? Don't we all want to find something that we can link arms and do it together? Part of what I love about Liz's story is that she didn't have a master plan, but she knew she had to move and take a step to accomplish what God had for her. And then God led her to the plan. Plans aren't bad, but sometimes you have to step out first. So, Liz, thank you for sharing your story and your courage with us. Again, Rosie took that courage to paint, and today she's painting on this broadcast. So let's kind of zoom back in and see what she's up to. Oh my word, Rosie, beautiful. Tell us a little bit about where you are in the process.
I'm actually done.
Oh, you're done. It's
I've
beautiful.
completed the art. Yes.
I love it. Tell us about it.
This piece of art was inspired by just the thought of the meaning of what it means to be well in your soul. So for me, while I was praying this morning, asking God what He wants me to share with you all today through this event, I kept hearing water, and I didn't fully understand what that was until I sat here and then it became so obvious that the hearing living water. And what's interesting is that I started 2020 thinking I just had to drink more water to be healthy this year. And I throughout the lockdowns, because of COVID-19, I remember thinking water is not enough to survive. I don't think water is sustaining me. And then I realized that it was living water that I needed. The living water that comes from my faith, that comes from the fellowship that I have with my friends who are like my sisters and my family. And it's this living water that not only quenches our thirst, but actually keeps us more alive, and not just alive, but fully alive in who we are, and living out that purpose. My purpose statement is actually bringing light and lighting the way. So I hope this art resonates with you all as well, how that living water is what keeps your soul alive and going forward, no matter what challenges you're faced with.
How beautiful. Thank you, Rosie, for sharing your gift with us, for sharing your beautiful art. It's just amazing what God has done through your story and your life. And I think you're just getting started. I think we're going to share her website at least, or if not, we'll do it in the follow-up email, because she just has all kinds of opportunities to share more of her story, which is she wasn't able to share today. So you'll want to check that out. Thanks for being with us, Rosie. Well, Liz also shared the power of being in community. And one of our mantras at Women Doing Well is that growth happens in community. We don't get wounded or set back in isolation, and we don't heal or go forward without community. So, our next guest met through our community here at Women Doing Well 2 years ago. Sally Lloyd Jones, an accomplished author of the Jesus Storybook Bible, generously used her passion for writing and her experience to encourage a friend to step out and do what God was asking. Ruth, a former prosecutor with a passion for hospitality, wasn't sure if her passion really counted until some conversations with friends that changed things. As a result, only a year later, she is now a published author. So I'd love to welcome them to the broadcast, Ruth and Sally. Hi, guys.
Hi.
Great to
Hi.
see you.
Good to
Ruth,
see
I
you.
love your story. And many people actually are the opposite. They think someday they're going to write a book, but I know that this was never a part of your thinking. So, how did this book come to be?
Well, it was absolutely never part of my thinking. And I thank the Lord. You know, my sister said something this morning: God qualifies those who are not qualified. And I feel like I fit into that perfectly. About 2 years ago, a friend of mine, Heather, and I had gone up to Connecticut for the signature Women Doing Well event. And we were guests of Janice Worth, and we were put at her table, which was with a bunch of rock stars, frankly. And there was a panel talking, and one of the women was in corporate America sharing how she really felt the Lord was calling her to work with the youth. And she had made the statement that she could do spreadsheets in her sleep, but she couldn't even put together a cheese board. Well, Heather and I get back in the car, and we're driving back to Philadelphia. And frankly, I think it was her attempt at levity. She said, well, at least we know how to make a cheese board. And we began to really pray in the car, because a lot of the conversation dealt with, what is your passion? And I said to Heather, the only things I'm passionate about at the time is my family and entertaining and hosting people. But that really, what does that mean? It means nothing really in my mind. So you fast forward till last year, I think, Sally, if I'm correct, I was invited by another woman I had met at an event very similar to this called Women of Legacy. And she invited me to London. And Sally Lloyd Jones was also there. And the three of us had gone to lunch. And I think in an attempt to get to know me better, Sarah had asked, she found out that my husband and I had been flipping houses for about 15 years. And we moved every 18 months. And I have 5 kids. One was born in every house. And she asked, why do you do this? And I said, you know, everyone's hungry for home. I watched Sally and Sarah both pick up their computers, look at each other and say, it's not been taken. And I said, what's not been taken? And they said, the name. And I said, for what? And they said, the book you're going to do. And I said, I will never, ever, ever do a book. So I came home and I was sharing the story with my sister, who started to cry. And she said, I think you're supposed to do this. And I said, no, I'm not. And she said, will you pray about it? And I said, okay. I just didn't feel like I had anything to offer. I mean, although I'd been a trial lawyer for years, I'd been a stay-at-home mom for, at the time, 16, 17 years. So my sister said, I'd like you to speak with an author out in California. So she actually flew out to meet with me and said, you're supposed to do this. And I am willing to help you gather the information and put this thing together. Well, she gave me a gift before she left. And she said, I've been to a number of different bookstores, and I have found the one that I believe is who you are and what you would put out there. And I open it up, and I don't know if I said this earlier, but Sally and Sarah and I had been at this farm outside of London when they asked me all of this. I opened this lifestyle book, and I said, where is this from? And she said, I don't know. And I opened it, and it was the farm I had been at with Sally and Sarah when they asked me that. So at that point, I said, Lord, I will be obedient. I will take the next step every day until you say no. And I have open hands. So we worked on this for about 6 months. It's called Hungry for Home. It's family traditions, recipes, gardening, entertaining. It's everything that I believe a home is, not just where you sleep and where you live. So I'm telling you, when it comes to community, there was Sally and Sarah and Heather and Wendy, Wendy just reminded me, she's on this call. And she said, Ruth, do you remember that person in the Bible, the widow, who goes to Elisha and says, they're going to take my sons. I have nothing. And he said, what do you have? I have a small jar of oil. I mean, in her mind, that's nothing. And Elisha says, go in your house. At first, collect all the jars from all your neighbors. Go in your house and shut the door and start pouring oil. She filled every jar, and it says that she had enough to live on. And I think that when you're surrounded with these amazing women that we are all meeting, who are willing to lift your arms when you can't do it anymore, or encourage you when you feel less than, yeah, God can do anything. So my prayer this year has been, Lord, give me the resource, give me the vision beyond my resources. And so yeah, that's been my story.
I love it. Sally, tell us a little bit about your role in all of this.
Well, I feel like other people helped me when I was starting out. It's like passing it on, giving it forward, paying it forward. And when I was starting out, I needed people to come alongside me and think big and lift my eyes to something bigger than my own resources. Also, I've learned that when someone comes up to you and they're telling you all these lovely things, which I kept hearing these amazing things Ruth was telling me, like she would share these incredible quotes, and then I went to her house and I partook of the foodstuffs of which she prepared so marvelously. So I actually did taste and see of what, because it's no good writing a book as beautiful as that if you're not a very good cook. So of course she was brilliant, and everything was so beautifully appointed. Her home was such a welcome. She just had that thing that is hospitality. And that, combined with the wisdom that she would share, I just kept thinking, well, actually, Ruth, if this isn't something just for you, you're doing it beautifully, but this is your chance to be generous. And I think in my work, if I can get out of the way and realize it's not about me, it's about a bigger story, and I'm part of a bigger story, then it stops being about me, and then I can be more bold. So I always, if someone is sharing something amazing with me and I can tell they would like it to be shared, but they're too scared to write themselves because they think they can't, my job, I think, is to say, but you have the vision, so you have to write the book. And it's a pleasure for me if I can help people the way I was helped, because none of us can do it alone.
So much. And thank you both for sharing your story. It's like just so encouraging how we can do what is countercultural, really. Instead of competing, we can really lift each other up, support each other, and be generous, like you said, Sally, with what we have, no matter whether that's a skill, our finances, anything that we have, we can just give to the Lord. We can surrender it and let Him use it. And we get the benefit of friendship and community and healing. And it's beautiful. Thank you both for being with us today. And I know that we are going to let you pre-order Ruth's book if you want. It's not even really out yet. We may even have a picture of it. I don't know, but we're going to go ahead and put that link in the chat so that you can find it. And just so excited for you, Ruth, and so grateful that you're both part of our community.
Thank you.
Thanks for being with us. All right. So throughout our time, we have had a few polls going on. And I just wanted to let you know that we have actually had an interesting group attend. We have a third, and a third. So a third of you are first timers, and we, again, welcome you. A third, you were at least at one thing with us before. And then the last third, you've been with us 3 or more times. And so you're our fans and our regulars. And I appreciate all of you so much. As I mentioned in the beginning, we have a pathway of events and resources to guide you as you identify your purpose, passion, and plan. This pathway starts with an Ignite experience, and we have 2 options to tell you about today if you're interested. But I want to first mention that when you come to something with Women Doing Well, it is a no-ask environment. We are not really trying to get you to be generous with us or with any particular ministry. We are really inviting you to come on the journey with Jesus and grow closer to him and learn about his abundance so that you can open your heart, your hands, and whatever you have to him. And so it's a very safe environment. So we have two experiences. One is a 6-week, 1 hour a week group called the Doing Well series. The other is our Women Doing Well retreat, which is a 1-day, 6-hour experience. So, depending on your schedule and what works for you, you can do a small group approach or you can do a 1-day retreat approach. Both will ignite your journey to wholehearted living and giving. And you can join a group or you can host your own. And if you'll look at this final poll over in the right-hand corner of your screen, we will let you weigh in. You can let us know what you'd like to do. Would you like to host an experience, join an experience? And the third option is you can stay connected through our bi-monthly newsletter. So if you're not sure you want to do something with us yet, that's fine, but you can stay connected via that newsletter. Just so grateful. We believe God is resourcing women, and we believe growth happens in community. So we invite you to join us. Thank you for joining today. I have one final video to share with you, and we hope to see you back in the spring. We're going to do another one of these water breaks at the well so that you can run hard after your purpose for him. So one more video, and then have a wonderful day.